And welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. There's lots to talk about, even though the season has ended. It's time that we look back at last summer and everything that went wrong last summer. When you look at this mob, you see Nicholson once again hiding in the background. Last summer, for 4 years now, Michael Nicholson's been hiding in the shadows. He's not one to come out and speak publicly. He's in charge of Celtic. Peter Lawwell, that you see standing there, he's the chairman. Brian Wilson, just next to the blonde. Brian Wilson, yeah. Mr. I don't want independence for Scotland, and went on a tour of Scotland to tell Celtic fans not to vote for independence. These people, for all the good that they do for the club, have held the club back for a number of years. Look back to last summer before I talk about the current situation that Celtic are in. When we look back to last summer, Brendan Rodgers said during the tour of America, he was asked about transfer negotiations. He was asked about transfers of players into the club, and when he was in America, Brendan Rodgers, he turned around to the media, who were asking him on a daily basis, what's happening with transfers? You said you wanted transfers in before the tour of America. You wanted your signings in before pre-season. And Brendan Rodgers lost his rag a bit towards the end of the tour in America last summer, and he said, I've been on the phone to Nicholson and Chris Mackay. Go and ask them. I've told them what I want, who I want. Go and ask them. It's in their hands. When it gets to the later stages of the window, Brendan Rodgers then said last summer he felt that the club could have acted quicker in the transfer market. And it's true, we could have acted quicker. We then went on to sell Kyogo Furuhashi during the last one. But we found out last night as well, we found out yesterday who we can get in the Champions League. Let me just, I haven't even downloaded that picture. Save the downloads. I've not even uploaded it. Let me just upload this picture first of the Champions League teams, and then we'll get back into what could happen in the transfer market with Nicholson and co this summer. And have they really been a little bit lackadaisical? I think that they have. Now that is absolutely a huge image. I'll put it over there. There's the teams that we can get in the Champions League. I don't know why it's got the Sevconians in that. I need to Windows Alt. Just do this and get rid of that manky mob. I don't know why I got sent that with the Sevco mob on it. Don't care about them. That's the teams that we can get this summer in the Champions League. Celtic have been seeded. Looks like we can get Maccabi Tel Aviv. That's going to happen, isn't it? We're going to end up going to a place that we don't really want to go to. We're going to end up going to Israel, aren't we? Slovan Bratislava, we beat Slovan Bratislava 5-1 in the first game in the Champions League last season, so I wouldn't mind getting them again. FC Basel, Karabakh and Sturm Graz, all teams that we can beat in the Champions League. So that's the path to the Champions League. It's been quite favourable to Celtic this year, and it's something to look forward to. It is something to look forward to after the summer recess, and well, the season will have been started by then. But Nicholson, let's get back to Nicholson and co. Let me just do this. We're definitely getting Bodo. Do you think so? We'll get that lot. And is it written in the stars? Not that one. What's that one? No, that's that. Is it written in the stars? Why is that coming about? Where's the image? It's that one. Do you think we're getting Bodo Glint? That's the teams. That's the unseeded ones that we're going to get. So I don't know how we're getting Bodo Glimt. Because they're not even in it. Anyway, Michael Nicholson and his leadership. As Dermot Desmond, Peter Lawwell, Michael Nicholson all head off to their summer holidays. Brendan Rodgers goes into the final year of his contract. Last weekend, he admitted his future will be decided by talks over the summer. When you look at what Brendan Rodgers said just a couple of weeks ago, before playing Hibs, Brendan Rodgers said, "Change will naturally take place. If every player was in the squad and every player was staying, I would say, we probably need 3 players to add to what we have of quality. 3 players of quality if every single player stays at Celtic this summer," is the words of Brendan Rodgers. Then we have to assess it from there. I think players that maybe aren't playing us so much will move on. We all know who they are. There's 5 players in the first team squad that are already moving on this summer. So all of a sudden, you have to change. It's good that you have to progress, Brendan Rodgers says. This team have been absolutely brilliant over a couple of years that I've been here. But I think there'll be some natural movement come this summer. That was Brendan Rodgers' own words before the Hibs game just a couple of weeks ago. He knows that it's a massive summer for Celtic Football Club. Brendan Rodgers then went on to say, "Either way, we'll look to come back in pre-season," in that dreaded word, "by the end of the window and the summer and be stronger." Pre-season gets away at the end of June. We travel to Cork City on the 8th of July. It would be absolutely magnificent if Celtic were to get their finger out this summer and we were to have players in before the Cork City game on the 8th of July. Now that's an important game. It is Celtic's first pre-season game, and the manager said, "We look to come back in pre-season and the end of the summer window stronger." Last year he bemoaned the fact that we weren't stronger during pre-season. When you look at it, Brendan Rodgers has ticked all the boxes that he was asked to tick this year, apart from winning the treble. The attitude of the manager when it comes to the club, or could it be the fact that come next summer, Michael Nicholson could be introducing a new Celtic manager to the Celtic fans? Brendan Rodgers has delivered 4 out of 6 domestic trophies he's delivered, which isn't a bad return. We do want and we do strive. The target is to get trebles. We got to near enough the last round of 16 in the Champions League. We got to the playoff place. We got Champions League wins this year. 4 Champions League wins. It's been a long time since Celtic have won consistently in the Champions League, and to get those 4 wins was a massive season. Whilst selling Jota a few seasons ago, we sold Carl Starfelt, we've sold Matt O'Reilly, we've sold Kyogo, we've sold Mikey Johnson, we've sold numerous other players over the last couple of years. We've swelled the coffers of the bank, and we've got a lot of money sitting in the bank. We've just spent 20 million on a complex down at Barrowfield. We've spent 20 million on a complex that I've still to see how it can give a return on its investment straight away. I always speak about the fact that I know the way that business works, and I know that there has to be some kind of return on the investment that the club makes. When the club invests in a player, they expect a return on that investment. They look to sell him on for vast amounts of money. Investing 20 million down in Barrowfield for women's football, to me, is a waste of money. And no disrespect to women's football. Women's football is on the up all around the globe. But when the club's in the position it's in, and we're trying to take steps forward to be competitive in the Champions League, that 20 million could have been better spent on 2 players for the first team. But we've got money in the bank, and let's just see if they can. Let's just see if we can move on. Boyfriend Benioff said, "Why do some Celtic fans panic so much over the transfer window? Have faith. We are better. We are a better season on season. Don't panic." I'm not panicking, Boyfriend Benioff. I'm just I'm reiterating about what Brendan Rodgers has said, factual evidence about what Brendan Rodgers said last summer and going into this summer. So there's no scaremongering here. It's just all facts. And some Celtic fans don't like the fact that the factual evidence is there. Brendan Rodgers spoke about it last summer and about the inability of Nicholson and co to get things done quick enough. Going into a Champions League qualifier at the beginning of the season, we haven't been too clever at the beginning of the seasons over the last couple of years. And Champions League qualifiers in Celtic don't go hand in hand. Who's panicking? I don't think anybody's panicking. I think this video is just about it's about the things that need to happen this summer, and Nicholson and co can't be left sleeping on their sunbeds this summer. Celtic did go into the transfer market late on after selling Matt O'Reilly last summer. They finally got down to business. They brought in Arne Engels, Austin Trusty, Luke McCowan. He came late in the transfer window. You can't get much later than what Luke McCowan came in the transfer window. He signed half an hour before the window slammed shut. That woke you up. People need to understand that we need new signings in pre-season. Nicholson is an accountant by trade, or a lawyer, or whatever. And during the autumn, Celtic had some fantastic results. 3-1 win over Leipzig, 5-1 over Bratislava, hammering Aberdeen 6-0 at Hampden in the League Cup. But then when you look at the squad, let's look at the way that we ended this season. We ended without Kyogo Furiashi. We ended without Jota. We ended without Rio Hatate. The squad was mediocre. The squad was threadbare. The bench was terrible at the weekend. And let's not deny it. The bench was absolutely terrible. When you look at the bench that we had, James Forrest, Yang, McCowan, Trusty, Ralston, Jeffrey Sloop and Johnny Kenny. That's not a bench that puts the fear of death into anyone. It used to be the case that the Celtic bench put the fear of God into things, and we had players that would come on and keep the momentum going, speed it up even more. In February, when we got put up against Bayern Munich, there was a number of subs available and Brendan Rodgers only trusted 2 of them. We were moments away from taking them to extra time, but we weren't just good enough. Allowing Kyogo Furiashi to go before that game, in my mind, not even that game, the Aston Villa game. He wasn't in the Aston Villa game because we played Daniel Cummins. Daniel Cummins got a shout in the Aston Villa game. So when you look at the things that's happened over the course of the summer, the inability for us to bring in a striker, and Johnny Kenny's a young lad. Adam Ida is not a prolific first choice terrorising striker. He might wear a black beret, but that's about all that he does. We need players in, and we need players that can make a massive difference. As pre-season gets underway, in just around about 4 weeks' time, 4 weeks' time, the players will come back into pre-season, and I've got a funny feeling that it's going to be a small squad that comes back to pre-season. There's going to be players that will have left, players that are out of contract that have left. The fact that we're trying to talk Jeffrey Sloop, get the black hat on for this rant. I don't think it's a rant, Lanky. It's what's going to. It's facts. Do you know what I mean? I'm talking about factual evidence that's happened in the past, factual things that Brendan Rodgers said, and where has Michael Nicholson been for the last 4 years? As the man who runs the club, Michael Nicholson is the man who runs the club for us. And he's never there. Baz, still better bench than the Sheep. Should have been better, says Joseph Davison. The bench was terrible, mate. I said before the game that the bench was terrible. McLaughlin P says the board and Brendan will decide enough. We'll have enough to tackle the Champions League qualifier. That's my fear. That's my fear as well. We'll never get our money back on either. Not a chance. Not a chance. The past is the past now, so let's focus on the future. Yeah, I am focusing on the future, and Michael Nicholson will need to earn his money this summer. Michael Nicholson is a person that has not delivered on time. Do you know that there's a thing that the Japanese and brought into manufacturing and in the UK in the early 90s, and it was the whole just-in-time scenario. Okay, it was like before then, manufacturing in the UK would stockpile parts, stockpile things that it needed for manufacturing, and it put British manufacturing at a disadvantage because the money that was held in stock in manufacturing an item made a company give it a financial disadvantage. It wasn't a cash-rich company. It was rich in parts that could potentially sell the product. But then the Japanese came in and people took a lot from Japanese methods and the Kaizen method of continuous improvement. And then, because I done a diploma in production and inventory management, this was my thing back in the day. And when the whole just-in-time scenario came in, you would plan, say you were making this pen. This pen comes, there's 5 different items in this pen, but you don't need all the items at once. So the last thing that you need is the ink that goes inside the pen. So that gets delivered the day before the whole thing gets put together. If it takes 5 weeks for this to get manufactured and 4 weeks for this to get manufactured, you then got to have the timeline for everything to come in. Our board are working on the just in time. You know, they need to get people in faster. Baz, this is Michael Nicholson's problem. It's Rodgers' problem. It's a Rodgers problem. He's the one at the target and doesn't move to the next if he doesn't get that player. Ange did, boom, and we signed players quickly. No, it's Ange got the players that he wanted. Ange got the players that he wanted. The board bent over backwards for Ange and got them in quick. You're not telling me that Brendan Rodgers does not have a list of players. If that's the case, sack Brendan Rodgers now because he is inadequate. If that's what you're saying, Big Rab, right? Was it Rab that said that? Brendan Rodgers is inadequate, sack him. If that's what you're saying, but I don't believe that to be the case. It was Big Rab that said. I don't believe that to be the case. I believe it to be the case, and it's been leaked out of the club before that Nicholson's not a chatty person. When he sits in meetings, he's not the most talkative, and that's came from people that work. You're putting me to sleep now. Fuck off then, Lanky. Anyway, and more Celtic news. Celtic into the whole Kidsford Garden thing seems to be kicking off. Kieran Tierney's coming back. In the Champions League is Sky, that's a load of shite. Anyway, that's your Celtic news this morning. I'm moving to the final. There's nothing we can do about it. I've moved on for the final. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm talking about what's happening this summer. Anyway, that's me done and dusted this morning. Just a quick one. Just talking about what this bunch of reprobates need to do this summer. Don't go hiding. For 4 years, Michael Nicholson's been hiding in the background. He needs to step up. He needs to step up fast this summer. Have a fantastic